I like to go over SignTracker, how I used it at my last sign shop, if that's okay. And then at any point in all of this, if you want to stop and ask me questions, that's great. We'll just kind of go through it. And I'm also recording this, if that's okay with everyone, because I haven't recorded a full-length webinar in a while. So if everyone's okay with that, you're gonna soon be famous. So or semi-famous anyway. Yeah. My sweet wife. We both work out of the house. I don't know if you guys have that scenario going on, but it has its moments. Anyway, all right. So we'll start from here. Welcome everyone to today's webinar of SignTracker. We're going to go through kind of from start to finish, and I'll show you how I use SignTracker at my shop. So we'll get started. And again, at any point in this demo, if you want to stop me, please do. So, and ask questions. And so first, there is a dashboard view of SignTracker, and some folks really like to start their day by looking at a dashboard. And here you kind of get a snapshot of the job flow board. So these are all the stages of production that you set up on the job flow board, and it'll give you kind of an idea of where things might be getting bottlenecked. So in pending approval, you have 13 jobs here that are past due. So it kind of can help you to look at where those jobs are and what do you need to do to move them on down the pipeline. Any job that you're associated with is going to show up here. If you have several project managers or whatever, you probably won't have this many jobs that you're associated with. Just this is my demo account, so all of them show up here. Also on the calendar, if you create any events outside of jobs, they will show up here. So if you can set up your production meetings or sales meetings or even outside meetings with people, as long as somebody in the contact management section has an email address, you can invite them to events and they'll get email reminders and all that. I do have these live webinars that are almost every Wednesday, unless it's like a holiday or something, and you're more than welcome to jump on any of those anytime. A lot of times, this is great today, having all these sign shops, but a lot of times it's just one or two people that show up. So we'll end up just doing an open Q&A. So even if you're a month down the line using SignTracker and feel like, oh, I want to start doing a little bit more on the quoting side, don't feel like you can't jump on any of these anytime. These are links to the recorded webinars and the training videos on our YouTube channel. So if you do go there, please subscribe, because it's really annoying right now. If you don't have 1,000 people subscribing to your YouTube channel, then ads pop up in your videos without any control whatsoever. So I'd appreciate that. And then plus, if you do subscribe, I think anytime we upload new training videos or whatever, you'll get notified. Also, we have live chat. You can call us anytime for support. So your SignTracker, subscription includes support. And usually, we have on our website our 800 number, which always rings through to, if we're not monitoring that, it rings through to either me or somebody else. We have live chat. Right now, we typically reply in under 2 minutes. So this adjusts to real time. So we try to be super responsive in this. And there's several of us that are monitoring this pretty consistently. So, and that's all included. Okay, so then SignTracker has a calendar view. And so basically any job or task that gets assigned a due date is going to end up on the calendar. And of course, then you can also use it to set up meetings and internal meetings and all that. And you can set up categories. And what's nice about this, though, is anytime, if something changes in a schedule, if you like the calendar view, you can drag any project from day to day, and it's going to change it throughout the entire system. So if you like to look at your jobs on a calendar view, and you can print this, and there's a day view and a week view and all that. The contact section. So if you're going to sync with QuickBooks, SignTracker is integrated with QuickBooks. So anytime you do a quote, and even if it's a new customer, so you want to set up a job in SignTracker, and then you do a quote inside of that job, and then it sells. So once you do the initial syncing with your contacts with QuickBooks, anytime you add a new person in SignTracker and you sell them something, all their information will automatically be fed into QuickBooks and set up the customer for you, and then you can do your invoicing and whatnot out of QuickBooks. If you don't use QuickBooks, that's fine too. You can start from scratch and just enter people in. You can import a CSV file if you have it from another application. So, and if it's not Outlook or something like that, then just if you can get a CSV file of your customers, we can kind of help upload that. You can also just download our little template and it's columns, and like you can cut and paste first names, last names, whatever, and then upload it that way too. The one thing I will say about the contact section. So once you start doing jobs for folks, what's nice is, like, say if you work for a school district or an architectural firm or whatever, where you might have one company, but yet multiple people are ordering from you. So SignTracker will keep track of every job that is in whatever stage it might be in. So you can see all your current jobs if you go to the customer screen, and then the same with any jobs that you had done and that are archived in their history. And if you click any of these, it'll take you right to the job in archive, and you can clone it or unarchive it or get whatever data that you need or attachments that you need. They'll all be there forever. But if you have multiple people at that company, for example, so I can click any of these and go, okay, well, with Josh, I have one job right now that's pending approval, or it's an opportunity. And then these are all the jobs I did with just him at that company. So it'll break down like who you did what with. Okay, so this brings us to the jobs tab. And I kind of like to get through those because they're a little simpler, but the jobs tab is where you're going to probably live in SignTracker. At least I did. And so there's a couple different views of all of your jobs. I'll show you the list view first, and then we'll talk about the job flow board, since that's a little bit more, that requires a little bit more management and setup, and I'll show you how to do that. But the job list view, I liked it. Like when I was at my sign shop, I would open this up all the time. And I would also keep the task list open all the time. And we'll get to that when we get inside of a job. But, for me, when I was in the list view, it was just because my role at my last sign company, which I get fired from, basically because my daughter and my son-in-law fired me because I was getting too many SignTracker phone calls. So they actually bought the business from me. And I am sadly no longer in the sign business. Like I'm in the sign industry, but not in the sign business right now, which sometimes makes me sad because I really miss making signs. But I love this view because for me, like if I was going to work on, let's say, I had, a client and I had 2 open projects with them, and I knew I needed to work on them today. So it's just easy for me to filter them out. And then from here, I can do whatever I needed to do. I could change due dates if I needed to. I can add a due date if it had no due date. I can move it from opportunity to whatever place on the job flow board I wanted it to go. So I can say, okay, pending approval, whatever, I can move it. So I liked this view just because it was easy for me to find jobs super quick. Also, if I'm on a Mac, so it's the command key, but I think it's control on PC. I've always been a Mac guy. If I hold that down, it's just going to open up another tab in my browser. So I don't have to leave this screen. So it was nice for me. Like I would just keep it open all day. And then if I needed to do something inside this job, here's where I would do all the stuff that needed to be done on this job. And we're going to start a new job from scratch. So you don't have to see all this history and stuff. So let's look at let's just start a new job, I guess, from here, and then we'll look at the job flow board because I'll show you where it lands. So if a customer calls in and let's say they wanted, a site sign, like one of those, real estate signs, and we'll say it's a 4x8 real estate sign. And the customer we'll pick on that big boy floats guy. So we'll say big. So if they're here's the thing, if they're in the system already, that's great. You just, click it, it'll automatically fill in all their information. And then if you have a person that's associated with the company, same thing, it'll automatically fill it all in. If they're not in the system yet, you do not have to go to the contact section to set them up first. So let's say this was big boys floats 2. So it's going to look for it, can't find it. new company. And then the same with the contacts, you can add a new contact, but it is so painful to watch me type that I'm not going to do that to you. And then you can choose, if it's a product or a service job. So at some point, we're going to enhance this tagging system so that you can have whatever list you want. So that's in the works. But for right now, what it does is it shows up on the calendar for whatever color you pick. So we'll just say this is a product job. If you have project managers, that's great. You can assign a project manager. If you're a solo person, then you can just assign everything to yourself. If you know a due date at this point, that's great. If you don't, if it's just a brand new job and you don't know it yet, then just leave that blank. And the job location or the shipping location, if it's different from the billing location, you can just add whatever, 1, 2, 3, we'll just say Main Street in Austin, Texas, 78709. Okay, so we're going to submit that. And so now you have your new job, and we'll talk about all the things that you can do to a job. But first I wanted to show you where this lands, and then we'll talk about the job flow board and we'll come back to this. So every time you set up a new job in SignTracker, it's going to land in the very first spot in the very first column. So the couple things, if I know when a customer calls in and just wants a quote, a lot of times folks don't even consider that a job. At our sign shop, we just considered everything like that a job. Anytime a customer requested a bid for something, we just called it a job. We called it an open job. And then if we lost it, we would just archive it, we'd close it. And it seemed like sign shops were way more comfortable with the opportunity tag. So now the job flow board is it used to be set up as open job, pre-production, production, install, delivery, and closeout. But then we added a bunch more stuff. So now the job flow board is completely editable. So any way that you want it to be, but just always remember any job that you set up. And if you don't get it, look, you can just archive it. But the reason why we have it set up as a job, because especially in the sign and graphics world, there's always something you have to do, or documents you have to collect, or logos you have to collect. And it was just easier to set it up where it would be considered a job. And then if you don't get it, archive it. It doesn't hurt to have it forever, because you never know if they're going to call you back. So in any case, so now we have this job set up, it's in opportunities, and you can start doing things through it. But before we go back into that, and I can show you all the stuff that you can do inside of a job. If you've never used a Kanban board before, a job flow board, or whatever you want to call it, the idea is that you prioritize jobs based on your resources or whatever priority you decide. So if some shops are hardcore, first in, first out, so you can organize them by due date. I know at our shop, we tried to be a first in, first out shop, unless, one of the owners said, no, you don't understand. This is the most important job on the planet. Bump it, which our shop foreman always wanted to grab a knife and stab us. But the idea is that you can prioritize this based on what's available. So say, for example, this job right here was going to tie up the printer for a couple days. And so these two jobs were super simple. And so you could knock them out in a couple of hours, get them to a customer, get paid, and then tie up the printer for a long time. So, or it could be that materials are back ordered, or whatever, for whatever reason, you want to put things on hold and bump jobs up. Or it could simply be that this customer is the best and they always pay and they order a bunch of stuff, and you just want to take care of them every single time. So it helps to sort of organize and prioritize based on that. I always like to tell people, though, the thing about prioritizing jobs based on you love this customer, I get it. The problem is, sometimes when you do that, it can definitely tick off some other customers. But the one thing that's nice, the other thing that's nice about a job flow board too, I think, is if you have it up on a big screen in your shop, it kind of gives the whole team a sense of urgency, because it can see the whole big picture of what's coming down the pipeline. So we always liked it for that. And it's also great for production meetings too. So in production meetings, we used to have our production meetings. If you're not having them, this might work for you. It always worked for us. And I did it at both my sign shops, my first sign shop, which was much bigger, and it was a big electric sign shop. And then my second one with my kids was smaller. It was more design project management. But we would have our project management meetings on Monday after lunch, and that was great. And we would have like the mother of all production meetings. We'd literally go through every single job, would look at tasks that were outstanding, if things were on hold. So you can put these things on hold. Let's say, it's pending a permit or pending materials. We'll say pending permit. And so you can put these big red borders around jobs. And this can be pretty big of a description if you needed it to be, but we would, address what was holding jobs up and blocking them, or would say, hey, this one's ready to go. It's ready for the next stage. You could mark it ready for next stage. And then when you move it over to the next stage, it automatically takes that off. With things that are blocked though, you have to like physically unblock it. So, we would go through and really look at every single job, and then again would do it on Thursday, but Thursday was way more of a stand-up meeting. So we would do it Monday after lunch, big one. It would give us a little bit of time on Monday to wrap up the day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday morning, we would have a stand-up meeting where we just talked about things that were blocking, from the project from moving forward. And that worked really well for us. The idea is to get the job all the way down to the closeout stage, have all your tasks completed. And the only thing that should be outstanding when you get down to the closeout stage should be, collecting the final balance if you haven't already done that. And then what we would do is we would say, okay, even though we did all of our collections and receivables inside of QuickBooks, we would still, we would put it on hold, and we would say, invoiced on 12/6. And so we would, and then it would sit there. And once the final balance was paid, then it would be unblocked and then archived. So that's pretty much, how job flow boards work. And with job flow board, this one, you can double click, you can rename these, you can put your cursor underneath, you can move these around in any order that you need them to be moved in. You can also choose well, if you want to set up more columns, just basically insert column after, name it, slide it wherever you want. You can also choose, this is just preferences, if you want to see who the sales rep is and who the project manager is, the date the job was created, and if you want to show the full description, you can. The full description thing is, if you just click this, this can go on forever, these notes or whatever you want. So I see a lot of shops that do this under whatever the product is. They'll just do a little line, then you can just put as much stuff as you want. You can also put live links in here. So if you had like a city code permit or special materials or a vendor you were using or emails, you can put anything in here and it'll create live links. It'll launch your email browser, or it'll take you to that website or whatever. So okay, so another thing about the job flow board that's nice is you can set up different views of the board. So if you're wanting to see everything that's going on, you can just go, okay, my board shows everything. But if you're a person that just deals with production, you don't necessarily want to see these things. I could choose the production view. So you can create different views. You can make them public or private. So if I just wanted to see the production view, it would hide the other columns, so I didn't have to see them. Or you can go back to the full view of the board. So anyway, all right. So once you've started a job and it's on the job flow board, and again, from the job flow board, a couple of things I should say. You can change due dates from here. And you can click any of these. It'll take you right to the tasks within the job or the attachments within the job. So, and we'll go through all that right now. So on the job flow board, those job cards are this basically. So I call this the job folder, the electronic job folder or whatever. So it will keep an activity tracker. Anytime a job is moved from stage to stage, it'll tell you who did it, who moved it, it'll tag it. And same with completing a task or adding attachments or adding notes. I mean, it'll just kind of keep a running tab of everything that's kind of happening on this job. There are tasks on the job. So with tasks, they're template driven. So how that works is you set up, I can just add a task if I wanted to. I could just go new task, blah, 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 testing, save it. It'll add a task. And then I can assign this task to whoever I want in the shop. I can have a due date that's separate from the due date here. So if you're really kind of managing, I'm going to delete this one because I want to show you something else too. But so if you're really trying to manage like how things are getting done as it leads up to the due date, you can do that. So let's just say this is due. We're going to say this is due in January, just so we have a due date on here. So if you want to build a task list by, product type, or just maybe a general task list on things that need to get done for every single job. Basically, you can just add a task, add a task, add a task. You can drag and drop them to organize them the way you want, and then you save it as a template. You just name the template, whatever you want it to be. And then when you're doing a job, you can say, okay, this is a general job, or it's a large project. So these can get pretty extensive. So let's say, for example, this is a large project. And maybe when I say large project, it could be a channel letter set on a building or whatever. But, first you have your initial meeting with the client, whether it's code checks. And so you can go through and you can build some pretty extensive lists. And if your shop is small and the same people do the same things over and over again, what's nice is you can actually assign all these tasks to whoever you want to, and then save the task template again. So I could save it as, with teams, a large project with teams. So if I selected, we'll cancel this. If I selected that in here, then it would just spit out this exact same task list, but everyone would be pre-assigned. So the only drawback with that, obviously, is if someone leaves the shop, then you just have to apply the template inside of a job, change whoever that task belongs to now, and then resave the template. So, but these are nice, it's kind of a good way to schedule the project. So that, okay, well, we'll say John's going to do this. And if this is the due date, then I need to have this done by this date. So you kind of go through and you can write notes too. So, hey, John, see me, blah, 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 before you start this. So, and then once tasks are assigned to people, they're also sent an email reminder as well. But I think even more than that, and this is a little bit of a training issue for your crew, but if you go into the jobs tab, you go to job tasks, and you can see everything that you have to do in the course of a day. So this was the other tab that I had open all day. And so it was really helpful because I can, I'm logged in as me. So it's going to show me all the tasks that I have, and I can filter them out by today. So if you're really using this, I'd go today, and every job that I'm associated with that has a task is going to show up here. It's going to tell me when it's due. I can see if there's a note on it. And you can look at this week, next week. If you were overseeing everybody, you could just go all employees and see every task that everyone has, or you can go every open task on every job. And from here too, if something happens like this, for example, this is in progress, but I was supposed to meet with this client today, but they blew me off. And so they want me to meet on Friday. So I can move it right from here. It's going to change it on the calendar. It's going to update it in the job. And then I can put, client, needed more time, or whatever note you want to put. So you can put that in there. And so like I said, between the job list and the task view, I bounced back and forth between those two, these two screens, pretty much all day. And if you're old school and you really want to just print your task list and walk around on a clipboard all day and check it off, and then come back at the end of the day and go, okay, I finished this one, this one's still in progress, leave a note, you can do that. So you can print it. Okay, let's go back to our job. And the other thing, notes. So notes are time-stamped as well. So anybody can take a note. Anybody that's logged into the system that has anything to do with the job, they can take a note. You can attach files to jobs. So any file that has, that's related to this job. And even if you were out in the field and you were doing some surveys, you could open up the job on your phone or in your tablet, and you can put your thumb on this square here, and it'll navigate to your camera, and you can upload all your photos from the field. And we just did a huge update on this. So matter of fact, there's a lot of things that are going to be built around this part of the app, but we needed to pretty much do like a huge update on our infrastructure so that we could handle upload and download fast and it wouldn't clog the system up for everybody. And we just recently put all of our stuff on Amazon S3, so it's very fast. But if I click this, I can go to I can find whatever files I have that are pertaining to this job. So if you're working on your computer and they're on your desktop or whatever, and I can click these, I can open them. You can just drag and drop them too if you want to do it that way. And it'll give you a view of all of them. So I can come in and now any of these, I could delete it if I don't want it there. I can edit it and change the name. I can just download it straight from here. If I click it, it'll give me a full view of what that is. I can edit. I can, again, change the name. I can add a tag to it. So you can organize your files by, whatever it is that you need them to be. So let's say, for example, this one is we'll say it's a design and logo. Close that. And so now it'll start, you can have as many tags as you want on once you start setting them up. And so you could have like final production, permit documents, whatever tags you want. And then if I just wanted to see just the logos, I just click that tag and it would filter it out. So it kind of acts almost like a folder organization system, but without the folders. So it's just text, but you can have as many files on a job as you want, and they can be up to 1 gig each. So, and if it doesn't matter, like this is an Adobe Illustrator file, the views, PDFs are great. So if you do save almost everything in PDF, it's fine, but anything like JPEGs, PNGs, AI, Photoshop, Corel Draw, all of them. But most folks these days are saving their art files as PDFs, which is fine. So now we get to the contract and the quote worksheet. So I will, it's the part of the app I think that people always get a little bit scared about. It's like, you got to set this up, but I'll show you how it all works within a job. And then there are some videos you can watch on the setup, but I can explain how it'll make sense if I explain how from the setup it all feeds into the jobs. So basically, if a client calls in and they want a quote on something, you can just go, new contract. So this, where it says quote worksheets, think of this as like a giant filing cabinet, because you can have as many signs on one worksheet as possible. So for example, if you're doing an apartment complex and you have a monument sign and a Chandler sign and, a bunch of ADA signs, that's one thing. Or if you do a lot of digital printing and big wall wraps or fleets, graphic, whatever, you can have multiple quote worksheets on one job. So, and you can still create a contract from these worksheets in here, but it's just much easier if a customer calls in to start from here. So I go new contract. And so there's several ways to add a line item to a worksheet. There's 3 ways, basically. One is, and they're all templates that you build. So one is just a blank template. This is called your master template, and it's just a copy of the master template from the setup. And when you get into SignTracker for the first time, yours is set up like this. And what it is it's just basically the master template is simply item categories. And you can choose, what do you want to feed into this item category? Well, I just want materials to feed into this item category. And I mark up my materials 100%. And then when you go to add materials to a quote worksheet, you would just, select whichever ones you want, add it. And then you can change the, the quantities or whatever. So if you were building out something custom, or you just wanted to do something super quick on the fly, this worksheet is great for that. It says 100% markup on materials. So when you enter your materials into SignTracker, it's great if you can enter them in at what it costs you and how you sell it to the customer, right? So if you are calculating your, a sheet of aluminum is whatever they cost these days, a fortune, I'm sure, but a 4x8 sheet of aluminum, let's say it's $100 and you sell it by the square foot. So it's 32 square feet. So whatever that comes out per square foot, that's how you sell it to the customer. In the materials section though, when you're setting up individual materials, you'll see a little cell that's in there that says additional markup for things like waste additional profit or whatever. And the reason why we put that in there is because a lot of sign shops said, well, I mark up, it's great to have a blanket markup on materials inside of a project, but there's some materials I actually mark up more than others because of waste or handling, or just because they can. So we built that little tool in there to do that. So whatever it is that you put in when you're setting it up with the additional markup for waste or whatever, that's what's going to show up here, but it's still marked up inside the project 100%. And when you're looking at your master template, if 100% is you think it's too much, you can change it. I mean, and you can even change it inside of a job when it won't hurt the master template in the setup. So, but whatever you have in the setup section, that's what's going to feed inside of a job. And then anything inside of a job that you do to a template, it doesn't hurt the template. It's just this is just a copy of the template in the setup section. Labor, the reason why labor is 0 is because almost all sign shops that use SignTracker enter their labor rates in at what they charge the customer. And so their retail rate, which I'm okay with. You know, if it's less confusing to do it that way, I think it's fine. And in the setup section, you'll see there's three different types of items that you can set up in SignTracker. 1 is your materials, 2 is your labor, and 3 is your formula items, which we'll talk about in a second. Labor items, if, you know, I'm comfortable with it this way if you really know what your labor burden is. And so if after this, if you want to shoot me an email, and I'll send you all my direct contact information too. There's a labor rate calculator. It's a little Excel thing, and you can kind of go through and enter in everything from rent to lights to insurances and all that stuff. And it will spit out what you should be charging per person in your shop in order to break even. So it's like your labor burden, and then you can put your markup on top of that. And it's Excel too, so you can make a couple of copies of it if you want to just duplicate it. So you might have a different shop rate for one person working in the shop, a designer working in the office, 2 guys in a bucket truck in the field. You know what I mean? So you can do multiple to help to help make sure that you have enough built in to cover your labor. Also, if you go to the Behind the Signs Facebook group that we created, so I think just search if you're cursed enough to be in Face World. I spend most of my time on Facebook and sign groups, so it's fun for me. But if you go there Behind the Signs, there's a file section, and I keep adding some freebie stuff in there. So the labor rate calculator's in there, but also I did a survey on labor rates. So like national averages for everything from, a vehicle graphic installer, designers, all the way down to, 4 guys in crane trucks. And so they're just averages. So hopefully that'll be helpful. So there's a spreadsheet on there that you can download, and there's some other things in there. You can take it all. So it's all free. All right, then formula items, that is if you use them. Formula items are going to be things like, hey, I sell a banner, and it's hemmed, it's grommet, it's printed, it's laminated, it's on 13-ounce white material, $10 a square foot. So it's more, formula items are more completed things. And it could just be you sell a 4x8 banner, single-sided for $100. That's a completed thing. So that's what formula items are for. I think formula items are fine if they're for simple things. The only thing, and again, most sign shops are entering their formula items into SignTracker at what they charge the customer. So that's my rate. I charge $10 a square foot. I think that's fine. There's a couple things I suggest is once in a while, build a 4x8 banner and actually track all the materials and labor so that you can say, hey, it cost me $100 to build this, and then I put my markup on top of it, and that's where I get my $10 a square foot. The other thing to do is just order from a wholesaler. So I was at Signs 365, I think. I used to use Georgia Print Co. a lot. Those guys are great if you've never used them. And they don't even pay me for saying this. They should, because I recommend them a lot. But I used to use them a lot at my last sign shop. And they do great work, and they're very reasonable. So if you are using formula pricing or something from a wholesaler, look, if it costs you $100 to get to your front door, double it, divide it by the square footage. That's a pretty good ballpark retail rate that you should be able to get in your market. And if you can't quite get that much, maybe you can bring the markup down a little bit than 100% and then divide it by the square footage. It's fine, but at least you know you're not losing money. So things like special order items, same. So if anytime we tried to order, if we ordered something from Gemini or some banner stands or whatever, we would always start with trying to double it. And again, inside the job, if it's defaulted to 100% inside the job, you need to come down a little bit, you can do that. And subcontract, same. So if we hired a couple folks to go out and dig some holes and set some posts so we could put a panel sign up or a pole sign or anything like that, we would always try to at least start with doubling it. And then the rest of this is if you have salespeople, you can have commissions and you can do discounts. Extras are going to be things like permits, surveys, things like that. I mean, some folks like to just put that up in the labor section and have it all buried into the price of the sign. I think that's fine. We just liked to have it down the bottom. So that way hey, if the sign's $10,000 and it was another $1,000 to do surveys and permits and acquisition and engineering, it was easier to explain that to the client, without having to itemize everything, because that's the only option up here. If you put all that stuff up here and the client, you really want to show it to the client, then on the contract, you'd have to itemize it all. But then they're going to see a total breakdown of like lamps and blah, 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 all the stuff, whatever, rolls of vinyl. And so we always like to have it down the bottom of the contract. Then taxes, of course, that's going to come over from QuickBooks. Unless you don't sync with QuickBooks, then you can manually enter in your taxes as one of the items. I know in Texas, technically we were supposed to collect sales tax by county, whatever the different rates were. But since we were in Austin, our argument was always, oh, hey, you're buying it from an Austin company, because our sales tax rate was the highest. And it still is the highest in Texas. So we just collected 8.25% across the board. So however you do that, but you will bring your taxes over from QuickBooks. And then if you were doing something on the fly, blah, 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 a nice description, pretty description, this sign's going to look really pretty. Or if you have some artwork, you can copy and paste description from the designer or whatever. You can name this whatever you want. Notes and details, the customer doesn't see it. So you can put whatever in here. This special part was ordered from Sign Warehouse or whoever, blah, blah, blah. And then save, and then it's going to add a line item to that worksheet. So that's one way to do it. And again, that's great if you're just doing something on the fly or want to do something super custom. Where SignTracker gets really helpful is when you start building out templates that can be applied to the worksheet, and all that stuff's all done already. So we'll just pull up the simple one. But they get pretty extensive. Like, so we have some sign shops we have a lot of sign shops that just do a lot of simple things like banners and coroplast signs and all that. But we also have a lot of sign shops that do both. They do channel letters and big apartment complex projects. My daughter's company, for example, does a lot of big development projects. Like I said, apartments with monuments and pylons and ADA and all that. And so you can have, like I said, you can have multiple on every project, but you can also have, you can build these templates out so that all your materials, like say this, well, this is a banner, right? So you can already have like your banner material, how much you're going to use. And even if it's a custom one, so you don't even have to have the dimension of 4x8, you can have 1x1 and quantity 1, and all these could be quantity 111, and then you just would adjust it when you're doing the quote. Or you could just simply build one out for a 4x8 sheet. You can choose. So I've seen a lot of sign shops do it where they'll build out these templates for standard sizes on things. And so they'll have like, 4x8, 5x10, 6x12, whatever, and then custom. And then the custom one is where they just will have all the materials and they would just manually go in and put the quantities in. But you can, and you can, if you want to add or delete, it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt the template that you created. But you can already have, design time and assembly time. And if you have a sales, everything can be pre-set up already, art setup fee or permits, then you would just apply your taxes. And then you'd already have your description written out, and you could make a note if you needed to, and then you save it, and it adds a line item to this, to the worksheet. And then you can add another one, whatever other signs you have, you can go all the way down the line. The other thing you can do is I can come in, let's say, for example, this is going on the outside. It's a temporary sign. They're waiting for their permanent sign, but they also want one for inside their lobby. So I can go here, and they don't need it to have grommets. They're just going to staple it to the wall, sort of a thing. That you can clone it. I can get rid of whatever I want. I'm not going to charge them twice for design. I won't charge them for a separate art setup fee, and I can get rid of the stuff that doesn't apply, save it. And then I just added another line item to this worksheet. The last way to add another one, if you wanted to, from an existing worksheet, is I could search all jobs. So let's say there was a monument sign, or there was a vehicle wrap, or whatever. You can say, oh, I did a job just like this a few months ago on another job. So you can search it by job number, by job name, if you name your quote worksheets correctly, a little bit of a description when you name them, that makes it even easier to find. But you can pretty much find anything that you did on other jobs and then just clone it. So I can clone it. It's going to pull it from that other job, and then I can make whatever adjustments I want to make to it. I can add a tax to it. I'm not going to add a tax to this one because this is an old quote when I had it synced with QuickBooks, and it'll give me an error message. So I'll just have no tax on this one. So I'll save it. And so it made a copy of it. It still gave me the darn error message anyway. You guys won't have that problem, so don't worry about that. Basically, I used to have this account. Every once in a while, we sync it with an online QuickBooks test account that we have to test things. And if it's a really old quote, it'll give us this error message. You guys won't have that problem. But once you have all this stuff, on here, then you can come down, you can add a note, thank you very much, you're the best. You can change your deposit amount if you want. You can change the name of this if you want. You can itemize, and you can itemize it inside too. So let's save this first, and I'll show you how that works. So I save it, and it creates a quote that you can send to the customer. And if you want to show itemization, all that is if you have customers that really want to see a breakdown of every single little thing, you can do that. Most customers really just want to see a pretty picture and a little description. So now this is the information that's all fed into QuickBooks. I do want to say, we're working on this right now. This is not the completed dealio. So if you click this, it's going to make a copy. It's going to create a link, and you can email the link to the customer, and they'll see this inside your SignTracker account. They won't have access to anything else, obviously. And they can shoot you an email back saying, yeah, this looks great, it's approved. We have started building an approval portal. And so ultimately the customer will get the contract and whatever proofs you choose. So that's why we had to do the attachment thing and build it that way with the full size thumbnails and all that. So ultimately, and like I said, we're working on it now. The first stage is going to be the contract and the proofs, a way for the customer to say, yes, 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 this looks great. And then beyond that, we're going to be building a link in Pay Now, so you can pay in SignTracker as well. And then all that information will go into QuickBooks. This is the easier part. So the payment part is a little bit more complex. So we're gonna focus on getting the contract and the proofs first, and then we'll do the payment part second. But for now, you can either send the link, and then you just have to manually attach your drawings, or you can download this as a PDF and open it up. If you have Adobe PDF or as some kind of PDF tool, then you can drag your drawings into it and send it all as one package. Once you send it to the customer, you're going to mark it as pending approval. And then once it's approved, you mark it as approved. And then what's going to happen is a link's going to be here that says generate invoice or create invoice, and you'll click it. And each of these line items will have the opportunity to match whatever sales category, and all your sales categories come over from QuickBooks. So you can match, like, hey, this is a printed sign, this is an electric sign, this is a service job. So if you have, detailed sales categories in QuickBooks, it'll keep track of, what your types of projects and stuff you're selling. And then you'll do all your collections and stuff out of QuickBooks. So
Joe,
yes.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt real quick?
Yes, you're not interrupting at all.
I just have a quick question about this particular module.
Mm-hmm.
As it pertains to QuickBooks. So if I integrate my QuickBooks Online to this, I know it'll bring over contacts, will it bring over, if I have those pre-done, well, I'm sitting here looking, it says 4x8 banner, right? So let's say I have a whole bunch of stuff in my QuickBooks already set up, right? Will it bring those over as well and put them into these little work sheets, or do I need to create those? Are you following what I'm asking?
I am. So what I would suggest is if you can export that list as a CSV file, maybe would you want it in the materials or the formula items? So are they like completed things? 4x8 banner is $100, like that sort of thing?
It's more like, for instance, we do a lot of vehicle wrapping, right? So certain per square foot. So we might, and that includes our installation. So it's more of a formula type thing.
Yeah, if you can export that as a CSV file, which hopefully in Intuit, in QuickBooks, you should be able to do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Then I think we can help you upload it. I mean, I'll show you in the setup. There's an upload tool for CSV files, but if you need any help cleaning it up or whatever, you're going to have to export it as a CSV file either way. So if you can do that, and then let's work together and we can help get it done for you. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, because we synced it today. We did our first sync and it brought all our contacts over.
Good.
But it didn't, I noticed that I was having some issues with trying to figure out this portion. I mean, yeah. I kind of stumbled through and was able to create some stuff on my own with just copying and pasting.
Yeah.
It's pretty user friendly. It just, I had a feeling that's what was going to have to happen, was that we were going to have to CSV it in.
Yeah. And we can help. So if you can get that, and you can either reach out to us in the chat here or just shoot me an email or whatever, and we'll figure it out for you and help you get it in.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. And so when you do send stuff over to QuickBooks from here, by the way, and just to remember, like if this particular customer isn't set up, so once your contacts all do come over from QuickBooks, when you set up a new job and a new customer, you'll never have to really go back to QuickBooks and set up customers anymore. If Big Boy Floats is not in there, then it's going to automatically set up the new customer and then generate the invoice that matches this. So the other thing, there's some forms in SignTracker. There's a lot of different types of forms. I always suggest people just look at them. If you have a form or a work order in your shop that you use that you are absolutely in love with and you've been using it since your granddad invented it, we're absolutely happy to help code that and put it into your account for you. And so if it's really extensive, we might have a little bit of a fee for that, like $50 or $100 max. But if it's pretty simple and it's a PDF, that's easy for me to do for you. So there are a bunch of sign templates in SignTracker. If you don't have these, they're helpful. Some of them are a little dated. And so we actually just engaged recently with a technical designer to redo all these. And so we're pretty excited about that. It's going to take a lot of them. So he's kind of doing it in between other design jobs that he works on, but that hopefully we'll have all these updated in a few months. And we're thinking about actually moving them out of here and just having a resource tab. But in any case, if you don't have these, there's a lot of them that are, they're good, especially on the, there's everything from banners to channel letters and all kinds of stuff in here. So anyway, just open them up, download them. They're all vectorized. You can edit them any way you want and put them in your own templates or whatever. So, but anyway, I'll just go over here to the setup section for a second, and you guys have been great. Let's see. So in the admin section, this is where you can set up all your employees. And with employees, you can choose to like what they want to see. So once you set up an employee, then you add them as a user. And excuse me, you can choose, like, if you want them to see the quotes and the reports and all that, you can choose that. A staff person's automatically, they can't, do any kind of QuickBooks integration or, enter your credit card into the system for payment to us. But as far as like being able to see quotes or reports, you can decide if you want that. If they're an admin, then generally they can see the reports and they can also do the setup stuff. If they're a staff person, automatically the reports and the setup and the admin and all this stuff isn't going to be visible to them. for, whenever you're ready to start paying, hopefully would have you as a customer. We'd absolutely love it. You can just go into my account and then you'll have the different plans there and it'll show you, how to do that. And for suffering through my webinar, my weekly webinar, if you do decide to sign up for SignTracker, which would absolutely love to have you, you just let me know and I'll apply a Joe code to your account. So your first annual subscription will be 25% off. So, and then obviously your QuickBooks integration, you can do that here. And if you're a QuickBooks desktop user, we only support the Windows version. So if you're a Mac desktop user of QuickBooks, I think you'd have to use one of those virtual PC things or whatever. But if you're a QuickBooks user online, both work just fine. It's just a little bit easier, less steps on the online version. On the desktop version, you do have to download a web connector, which has to sit on the same machine that your QuickBooks install sits on. And there's videos and stuff you can watch. It'll walk you through it. So if you do have, say, QuickBooks installed on a server, then the web connector will have to be installed on the server along with QuickBooks. So yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much SignTracker in a nutshell. I hope this was helpful to you guys today. And, you have access to me and all of our support people, and we really want you to be successful with it. So anything you need help with, just always hit us up. So that's it. That's the show. That's a wrap. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. And yeah, just any questions you have or whatever, just, let us know.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much for checking out SignTracker, and be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on YouTube.